Hi, it's Jim. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to the channel if it's your first time here. We listen to, talk about and do all sorts of things music-y. I'm going to be talking about something, a subject, or many subjects within this one subject, that crops up time and time again in the comments. And it's the one thing, it doesn't annoy me, but it kind of so it just makes me say, oh, okay. Raise my eyebrows a little bit. People dismissing music because it's of a certain style or genre, or maybe listening to a few minutes of something and say, no, it's not for me, not for me, not for me. I can't do it. And I've picked 10, not necessarily genres, but styles of music that I think are the most hated that people talk about. And I'm going to offer up an album that might be a gateway into it, possibly. Now, they may not all be the greatest albums ever, but I think they could be an approach, a way to sort of maybe get into listening to this sort of music. And they're obviously all albums that I have and I listen to and I love. So the first place I'm going to start off is what's affectionately called, but doesn't really mean anything, indie rock. So when the term was coined, it obviously meant independent record label, bands that are on indie labels, which kind of allowed them a bit more flexibility and freedom to be non-mainstream. And they were still very short, succinct, radio-friendly, potentially, songs, but the term became synonymous with a style of music that wasn't hard rock, certainly not metal, wasn't pop music, wasn't progressive, all sorts of other stuff. And it's just, you know what it is. You know what indie rock is. And there's some bands that sort of fall into this lump that I think are amazing. And I'm going to give you, this is the first one, or this is the first record I'm going to show you from this list we're doing today. And the band I've selected for this is called Doves. And I'm going to show you this album, and this is the one that I think you should listen to. This is called The Last Broadcast. The band is Doves. They have good credentials. They come from Manchester. They have guitars, bass, drums. There's 3 of them. And they make some incredible songs. I really think, I mean, I'm not suggesting you go out and buy all these. Maybe sort of just check them out on streaming or whatever. But I love this record. I love this band. I've seen them a few times. And they just make really, really uplifting, honest to goodness, genuine, from the heart guitar music with heart and soul, and I love them dearly. I don't know if you've ever heard music or words sung with an accent, but you could so hear the accent on Jimmy's voice when he sings on here, and it is brilliant. But it's got some fantastic tracks on here, and so I'll pick out for you are Caught by the River, Pounding, the M62 song. So the M62, it's the motorway around Manchester, and the actual song called Words. And they are just, there goes the fear as well. There's some absolutely classic tracks on there. I really, really highly recommend this. Give it a go. Right, what else we got? The next genre we're going to tackle is punk. People hate punk, don't they? They really do. They really do. So I'm going to offer you a slightly different take on this. This is a modern punk rock band with some metal-leaning tendencies and definitely alternative rock. The band is the Wild Hearts. And this is the album I think you should get or check out. It had Devin Townsend in it at one time, but they are from the northeast of England. Wild Hearts, Ginger Wildheart is the main man. They write infectiously good I don't know, kind of sort of punk rock, sort of along the same. It sounds like the sort of choruses you might get in something like Green Day, but with a much more political, a much more biting edge to it. They they can play their instruments. They can play their instruments really, really well, and they're not scared of guitar solos. Um, I don't know whether I don't know what the definition for punk is, but these are labelled in many people's minds as a punk band or as a punk rock band. Um, they're definitely a hard rocking band with punk sensibilities. And if you think you don't like punk, check this out and give it a go. They're fantastic. Rooting for the bad guy. We've listened to this on the channel a couple of times. The revolution will be televised. The sweetest song, the new flesh. It's destroy all monsters. It is just fantastic. Give it a go. So that is The Wild Hearts by The Wild Hearts. Another genre that people really, really, really don't seem to like is country. Now, obviously, this is a vast, vast genre. So I'm going to trickle it down to one little teeny tiny spot, which is probably the last place anyone would think of looking for country, is Wimbledon in southeast London. And the band was Grand Drive. And this album is called Road Music. It was led by two brothers, Danny and Julian Wilson, and they were a four-piece. I can't remember what the guy on the drums is called, but on bass was Ed Bouch, who happens to be a friend of mine. And they've released 5 albums, I think, during the 90s and early 2000s. They are sadly no longer a band, but they made some of the greatest alt country music you'll ever hear, and nobody knew them. They were just not known. Check this out. I mean, it pulls at the heartstrings. It makes you sort of just want to sort of curl up and smile and cuddle and nurse a little beer and think, oh, it's just so lovely. They've got no right making this sort of music because of where they came from, but it's not really surprising the sort of music they came up with, given the influences they wore on their sleeves. Neil Young, Amy Lou Harris, Graham Parsons. It's all there, and it is achingly beautiful, heart-wrenchingly sad, beautiful, beautiful music, and proper songs, properly played, brilliantly played, and I heartily recommend it. So that is Road Music by Grand Drive. Next up, the next genre we are going to tackle is what we should go for now. Let's say, okay, hip hop. Hippity hoppity! It's not normally a genre that I've listened to a great deal of. I have a little bit of experience, but I would say for me, the one thing most recently that has piqued my interest and got me back into this genre at all is Ren. And this is his album, Sick Boy. It is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. A lot of you know this. I mean, some people have listened to it and said, no, I can't be doing it. If you've not heard it, and if you're not familiar with his work, and you think you don't like hip-hop, give it a go. It's totally different from the sort of gangster rap sort of thing that you might expect and associate with hip-hop. It is music about his own life, his own experiences. He's a raconteur, so he's telling stories, he's making commentary about the capitalist society that we live in, and he's bringing attention to sort of his own medical conditions and how he's sort of lived with it and overcome it. And there's references about suicide, about mental health, about self-harm, and it's all there, and it's all good stuff, and it's very, very relatable. Give it a go. If you don't like it, obviously move on. That's fine. But this is a really great way to perhaps get into a genre that you don't think you might like. So give that a go. That's Sick Boy by Ren. Now, strangely, considering the channel that this is, there are an awful lot of voices that say, "Oh, it's a bit too proggy. I don't like prog. Not prog. No, no, no." People have stopped listening to coming onto the channel. Oh, Jimmy listens to too much prog. I'm going to give you an album that I think is a modern one, but it's a gateway into progressive rock. And of course, it's by Stephen Wilson. Steve Harris, a different band altogether. Stephen Wilson, Hand Cannot Erase. This is, without shadow of a doubt, a modern masterpiece. I don't think everybody who ought to have listened to this has listened to it. If your only thing in life is metal, or if your only thing in life is indie rock, for example, whatever that is, or electronica, or give this a go. You absolutely cannot deny the songwriting, the musicality, the production, the brilliance of this record. It is second to none. It is absolutely fantastic. And if you are in any way scared of or doubtful about progressive rock, give this one a try. And if you still feel that way, then yes, fair enough. But I think this is a great, great way to get into it without having to go back to the 1970s. Another genre that comes up time and time and time again as one that people really don't like is jazz. And I get it. I get it to an extent. But I don't think you've heard this. This is Miles Davis. Bitches Brew. This is the kind of the start of jazz rock. So jazz moving over into electronic musical instruments, guitars, keyboards, early synths. You know, it's incredible. A lot of people, if they think about jazz, they're thinking about straw boater hats, waistcoats, and saxophones on the village green for wedding music and stuff like that. And it really isn't. It's such a huge, broad genre, and people think they know jazz because of some I don't know, Kenny G or something like that. That's not. It's like saying you know metal because you've heard some Europe and you didn't like it. You know, the Final Countdown. It's wow, you're missing out. Give this a go. Really, with an open mind, go into this, listen to this, and be honest that this is not extraordinary, genre-changing, history-changing music, because it is. Bitches Brew, Miles Davis. Right, I've got two categories here which are sort of fairly close together, and in fact, two categories with two. I've got 4 records left. The first one I'm going to do is electronica. So electronica, but focusing on samples and loops. Check this bad boy out. This is The Orb, Adventures Beyond the Ultra World. It is nothing but samples and loops. And it is just incredible. It is one of the most creative records ever made. It's been copied since then. Other people have done it, but these really were right there pioneering this sort of music. It's like collage, you know, as a medium for presenting a visual art. Well, it's done in the same way here. but it's just so clever, finding sounds, discovering things, bringing them together, using them in different ways, being so creative with it. I totally understand that people are worried about the use of computers and electronics in music taking away the human thing of playing guitars. Well, absolutely. I mean, I couldn't agree more. But I still would champion this music and the next one as well as actually being written by people. It isn't AI. I think that's where we get a problematic thing, which is where we've come to now. So when you prompt a computer to say, make some music similar to blah blah blah, well, there is no human input there. That's not music, really. This is. And it is human made. Every single bit of this has been made by people finding music, joining it together, changing things, layering sounds, slowing things down, manipulating them, putting effects on them, changing it. It's just brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. One of the greatest albums ever made, in my opinion. I love it. Now, slightly related to that, I'm going to call this techno. And I don't really know that's quite right in terms of how to describe this genre, but it's it's electronic music, still using samples, but much more synth based. So using synthesizers, drum machines, programming into a computer. But again, I would say that this is completely made by people. It's just using computer as a way to, as the canvas almost. And the album I'm going to illustrate this with is this. This is Underworld, second toughest in the infants. It is so good. It is so good. Yes, the rhythms and the beats are there to make you dance and to tap your toes and to keep you entertained. But it's an album. It's a proper album of proper tracks that lead from one to the next to the next to the next. There's a theme. It feels thematically that it's all correct. It's all present and right. I could have chosen Left Field, but I think I've talked about Left Field quite a bit. And I thought I would need to just mention Underworld because this, for me, again, is one of my favourite records ever. I haven't listened to this for a little while, but when I was sort of getting these records out, thinking about what I was going to be talking about in this video, I thought, actually, I've got to champion this record and I've got to champion this band. Again, don't go out and buy it just on a whim, but do listen to it and tell me it is not fantastic. It is so creative, so interesting, absolutely brilliant. I love every single thing about this, and I wouldn't not have it in my collection. Right, the final two genres or two areas we're going to get to are... The first one I'm going to touch on is harsh vocals. Probably one of the most contentious subjects or contentious sounds in music that I feature on the channel. It divides the audience right down the middle. People just do not want to know about it. And I do understand. I was there at one stage. But what I'd offer you as a way to sort of maybe ease yourself into it is not the obvious one. It's not Opeth. It's not going to be something like that. It's a band called ISIS. And this is a record called Panopticon. Now, again, don't rush out and buy this. Find it on Spotify or YouTube and stream it. There is harsh vocals on here, but they are a long way back in the mix. They are very, very much there as a texture to add to the atmospheric post-rock, post-metal sound that this record and this band achieve, what they do. So it is there, but it's not sort of grating and digging in and sort of doing that horrible thing that it can do. It really is some of the most beautiful, beautiful music. And I wouldn't have found this if it hadn't been for the channel. I was recommended this. I was bought this. I was suggested that we've listened to. I mean, I've listened to Isis quite a few times now on the channel. But again, I wouldn't have got there without the channel. And I don't think if that's something that you shy away from, it's something you'd never listen to either. So just as a little recommendation, just to give it a go, try again. Not with some of these sort of really in-your-face, harsh vocals with a very, very heavy sound that goes with it. This is something a little bit different. I mean, it is still heavy. It's heavy as anything. It's crushingly heavy, but it's absolutely beautiful. And the vocals, there's a mixture of clean and harsh, but where it is harsh, it is so blended in and part of the music that you can almost sort of imagine it's not a voice at all. It's just an instrument. The final genre is metal. Of course it is. Heavy metal. So many people really don't like metal. They don't want anything to do with it. I can't help you but just to try and suggest a single record. I'm not going to take you back to Black Sabbath. I'm not going to take you to Rainbow or Whitesnake or Deep Purple. They're sort of kind of more classic rock. I'm not even going to take you to Judas Priest. I'm going to bring you to my favourite band of all time, which is Iron Maiden. But I'm not going to start at the very first album or even the second, but I'm going to bring you The Number of the Beast. This is the third album by Iron Maiden. It came out right at the beginning of the 1980s. 1982. It's the first album that had Bruce Dickinson as the vocalist on it. And the songs are properly accessible. They're not difficult songs to listen to. They're heavy, but in a beautiful way. Iron Maiden, you can't go wrong with this band. You really can't. And it's classic heavy metal, and it's absolutely lauded as one of the greatest albums of all time, let alone metal albums, for a reason. The songs are strong, the performance is strong, the soloing is ear candy, there's no rough edges, the production is brilliant. Everything about it came together perfectly, and it is the embodiment of all that I've said, but along with a young band that are ambitious and hungry and trying to be the best they can be. And I think this probably is the finest example of that within their catalogue. And because they are my favourite band of all time, I had to include them in this list. If you think you don't like metal and your only experience of metal is a bit of Metallica and some Pantera or something that you may have heard, some Trivium or something much more modern, do listen to this. Try it. As I say, don't go and buy it just on my say-so. Listen to it first. And then with an open mind and without any sort of thoughts at the beginning saying, oh, I don't like metal, just listen to it. And if you still agree that you don't like metal, then fair enough. But I can only help you so far. You have to take the final step yourself. So there we go. That is my list of top 10 hated genres and maybe a way to get over it. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I'll see you on the next one, whenever and whatever that is. Until then, this is Jim, over and out.